Section 7.7, Modeling with Exponential and Power Functions. So in this section of notes, we're going to be doing one problem on the graphing calculator and one problem that's by hand. So I would encourage you, as we do this problem with the graphing calculator, first of all, you're probably going to need to have your note packet with you. And second of all, I would pause the video as you're doing the steps. I'm going to try to walk you through and direct you on your graphing calculator where those keys are. I'm going to be looking at the TI-83 or the TI-84. So this table gives the number of Y in millions of cell phone subscribers from 1988 to 1997, where T is the number of years since 1987. So the first thing I want you to do before we start this is let's turn your calculator on and let's get everything cleared out of there. So let's go to your Y equals, and if you have any equations, let's clear them out. And then go to second quit, so you're back in your home screen. Now we're also, at some point, if you look over in the directions for entering this into your graphing calculator, we're going to have to adjust our window. So while we're on this page with this data in front of us, let's look at what the window is. So to begin with, we need to determine what our minimum for our x should be. So our x is given by the years. And we're going from 1988, or year 1, is what we're going to be putting into our calculator. And so let's always go a little bit below that. So we want to make sure that we can always see the smallest data point. So let's set our x min at -5. And then our x max. So how big do we go? Well, this goes to 1997, or 10 years later. So again, let's go a little on the high side of that, and let's set our x max at 15. So the window button that you're going to be, we'll get to that in a minute. Our y min, our y is the number of cell phone subscribers. So if we look at the smallest number, we have 1.6. So let's again go a little bit below this. We can't have a negative number of cell phone subscribers, but let's start at -5. And then our y max. Well, the maximum that we have in our data is 48.7. So again, let's go a little bit above that and put it in at 60. So you'll want to pause the video and at least write these numbers down, and we'll come back to how to put them in just a minute. So now we're going to try to enter this data. So the first thing you need to do is have your calculator on, obviously, and you're going to hit the Stat button. And that's in the second row of buttons and the third column. You're going to hit Stat, and we want to edit our data lines. So since it already has Edit as highlighted, we're just going to hit Enter. And we're going to see L1, L2, L3. If there's any numbers in either of those lists, you're going to want to arrow up and arrow over until L1 is highlighted, and you need to make sure that you hit clear, not delete. If you hit delete, it's a lot more extensive to get that list back, and you'll just have to come see me and I'll show you how. But if there's numbers in list 1 or list 2, you're going to arrow up until the L1 is highlighted. You're going to hit clear and then enter. And then you're going to do the same thing for L2. Once you have those lists cleared, you're going to go to the first entry point and you're going to enter 1 through 10 in your list 1. That's going to be your x coordinates, and then the y coordinates in your list 2. So please pause the video right now and go ahead and enter those numbers. Now the next thing we need to do is adjust the window, and we just previously talked about that. And so the window button is right underneath the screen on your graphing calculator, and it's the second button from the left. So you're going to hit Window, and you're going to enter those data values that we just talked about. After you do that, we need to make sure our stat plots are on. So in other words, those data points that you just entered, we need to be able to see them. So you're going to hit the second, which is the top left button, and then the y equals, the far left one underneath the screen. So second y equals, and you're going to want to arrow down to 5, which is plots on. You're going to hit enter, and it's going to say plots on your screen. You need to hit enter again so it says done. Once you do that, you can go to your graph, and you can see that those data points, if you've changed your window and you've turned your data scatter plots on, you can see those points. Now, hopefully by looking at this data and looking at the shape of this data, you should see that it's an exponential regression. So now we're going to have the calculator give us a equation for that. So now we're going to go back to that Stat button, second row, third column. But now we're going to have to right arrow over to the Calc menu, And then we're going to scroll down to where it says expreg for exponential regression. That should be the 0, but depending on your calculator it might be a different number. You're going to hit enter, and then you're going to hit enter again. And the second time you hit enter, it should tell you that the model is y equals a times b to the x. It should give you an a value and it should give you a b value. It may or may not give you an r squared and an r value. Whether it does or doesn't, that doesn't matter. So you just need to write down the a and b value, and if you'll notice in your note packet there is a spot for those. And I'd like you to round to 4 decimal places. So now we're writing down these 2 values, and now I also want you to write the model. So just because you have your a and your b value written down doesn't mean you have the model for this data. The model is going back and putting it into that equation. So y equals a, 1.3008, times our b, 1.4585, to the x. And so then we should go back and let's put that into your graphing calculator. So you're going to go back to your calculator and hit the y equals, which is that far left button underneath the screen, and you're going to enter that into your calculator. 1.3008 times, and then 1.4585. To raise to the power, you're going to use the button right above the divide sign, right below the clear sign. It's the caret. And you're going to raise it to the x power, and the x button is in the second row in the second column, right next to the alpha button. So go ahead and enter that equation into your graphing calculator. Now, to use the graphing calculator to estimate what the cell phone subscribers are for the year 2000, obviously to do this by hand, you're just going to plug in 2000 minus 1987 would be 13 years. So we're going to plug in 13 for our x. And if you were to plug that into your calculator, you would get 175.79. We need to remember that this is million people. And so putting the appropriate number of zeros there, we have 175,790,000 subscribers. To do this on your calculator, you could hit the trace button, which is the second from the right button right underneath the screen. And you'll see XY coordinates appearing on the bottom. You'll need to make sure that the equation of the line is appearing on the top of the screen. So if it says P1 and then L1, L2, you need to hit the up or down arrow until the Y1 equals, and then your equation shows up. And when it does, you can plug in 13 for the X and hit enter, and it will also give you 175.79. So according to our model, when will there be 100 million cell phone subscribers? Well, we would need to plug 100 in for our y, and now we need to solve this for x. So if we use our graphing calculator, it's just going to give us an approximation because we can't plug in an x or a y value in our graphing calculator. So to solve this, we're going to divide both sides by 13008, 76.8757. And now the whole point in this chapter, or one of the biggest points in this chapter I should say, is learning how to get that variable out of the exponent. So we're going to take the log of both sides. And when we take it over the right hand side, the whole reason we're doing that is to be able to bring that exponent out in front. Now solving for x, dividing both sides, we're going to get 11.5053, which is approximately 11 and a half years. We obviously can round that. And 1987 plus 11 and a half years puts us somewhere in 1988, 1989. So because we have kind of this vague answer, that's why I want you to make sure that you're at least giving me this answer to 4 decimal places. And now the last problem. Write an exponential function, y equals a times b to the x, whose graph passes through 110 and 480. Now you probably could use a graphing calculator. If I give you a problem like this, I'll just want to see that you know how to do it algebraically, so please don't rely on your calculator at this point. We need to write an equation y equals a times b to the x, so we need to find a and b. Since we are missing 2 letters, 2 variables, we're going to need to have 2 equations. Well, fortunately, we have 2 pairs of x and y that we can plug in. So if we rewrite these, we'll have y, which is 10, equals a times b to the x, which is 1. We can simplify this a little bit. 10 equals a times b. Let's do that with the other ordered pair. So 80 equals a times b to the fourth. And now, hopefully you should see that you could solve this first equation for a. We'll get a equals 10 over b. And let's plug that into the second equation in place of the a. So 80 equals a, which is 10 over b, times b to the fourth. Well, simplifying this, the b on the denominator and the b on the numerator cancel, so we have 80 equals 10 b to the third. Solving this for b, just divide both sides by 10. b to the third equals 8. We just need to get rid of that exponent, which we learned how to do last chapter, by taking the cube root of both sides. So b equals 2. Now we're just going to take that, plug that right up there for b. A equals 10 divided by 2, so a equals 5. And now we can use those two values to go ahead and write our model. Y equals a, which is 5, times 2, our b, to the x. And that's our model. If you have any questions, this was the last section of the chapter. That means that if you have any questions on anything from the chapter, you should please be sure to come ask them. Come to class or come to see me. And we'll see you in class tomorrow.